I guess I've already told you about my condition.
Oh, well, only every time I see you.
It's my memory.
Amnesia.
No. It's different from that. I have no short-term memory. I know who I am. I know all about myself. Since my injury, I can't make new memories. Everything fades. I've told you this before, haven't I?
What's the last thing that you do remember?
My wife. Dying. My wife deserves vengeance. Doesn't make any difference whether I know about it. Just because there are things I don't remember doesn't make my actions meaningless.
You really want to get this guy, don't you?
Killed my wife. He took away my fucking memory. Something doesn't feel right. I think someone's fucking with me, trying to get me to kill the wrong guy. What have I done?
Come on, Leonard. How many times I gotta tell you? It's not safe for you to hang around here anymore.
Why not?
Because the cop's looking for you.
You're gonna pay for what you did. Who did this to you?
What?
Who did this to you?
You did.
Trust yourself. Trust your own judgment. You can question everything. You can never know anything for sure.
Exactly what happened. Write down exactly what happened. Come on. I can find a pen. Jeez, come on. Oh, keep focused. Keep focused.
No! You know, I've had more rewarding friendships than this one. Although I do get to keep telling the same jokes.
Now where am I? I'm in a bedroom. Just an anonymous bedroom. What was your final score for this movie?
For Memento? Yep. My final score for Memento would be 8.7. Definitely as great as a lot of people say it is.
Yes, and I gave it an 8.4. Definitely, I think anything above an 8 is a classic.
Definitely.
Really. What it means.
I believe the movie is talking about deception. Not just in how people can deceive you when you're in a vulnerable situation, but also how you can deceive yourself. And how you can come up with a certain narrative in your own head, which would be completely true for you, and you will see that as reality, when in fact, you could be fooling yourself.
I put, it's interesting how a guy with no short-term memory can trick himself. Anyway, that's all I put.
Yeah.
But, yeah, this is also very interesting, you know, like, there's a lot of interesting stuff on here.
Yeah, can I see that? Can I see
No!
that? What?
I have to have a system if I'm going to make it work. I look in the drawer. I know what's in there, but I look anyway. Nothing but a King James Bible, in which I read daily. Finally, the soundtrack, Jonathan.
I give the soundtrack a 7. It's mostly traditional in the color reverse order scenes, and that I don't really remember too much about, but the reason why I give the soundtrack a little bit of higher grade is that in the black and white scenes, there's this very tense electronic score that is really highlighting the anxiety that the main character is experiencing, just always coming to and thinking, where am I? What am I doing here? Why is this bottle in the hand? Who's this person who's sitting right in front of me? And so that's why I give it as high a score as I would. Besides that very anxious sounding music, there was not much to speak of, but still, I'll give it a 7.
I gave it a 6 out of 10. I think it's a lot of ambient music and even some like synthesized sound effects, which I think worked well for the type of emotion that they were trying to portray. But it wasn't like a memorable Star Wars type soundtrack, you know. So that's the only reason I gave it such a lower grade, but it's above average because I think it worked for what it was.
I have to have a system if I'm going to make it work. The blue ribbon reminds me to take my pills. The yellow ribbon reminds me to look at the blue ribbon. And the green ribbon reminds me to look at the yellow ribbon to remind me to look at the blue ribbon.
Writing for Memento.
Yep.
Dude? Sir?
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Well, I also gave the writing a 10. Again, just as with the directing and producing, you really have to know what you're doing with this movie, or else it becomes a complete mess. And probably what they did, they probably wrote it in a linear way and were able to find ways to make it shown in reverse order. And so in order to do that, you have to create a good story to begin with. So just that the reverse order thing won't just be a gimmick. And the reason why it wasn't a gimmick was that the screenplay was 100% solid.
I gave it a 9 out of 10. I think it's very, very brilliant the way that it was, put together, and I think that what are we talking about again?
Memento.
Oh, yeah. I think that it's very simple, and yet it's done in such a way that's very original, and some certain lines in there, like, what am I doing? Oh yeah, I'm chasing this guy. I know he's chasing me. There's little things, I don't feel drunk, you know, like when he's holding the bottle and he doesn't remember drinking it. Just things like that that are just kind of funny and creative.
My system of ribbons helps me to remember what I'm supposed to do today. Here on my other hand is a silver ribbon, which reminds me to supposed to do something. A friend is coming over today. So what am I doing?
Visual, sound, and editing. Jonathan?
I gave this an 8.5. One of the great things about the movie and what made it a little bit easier to follow in spite of its complexity was that all the reverse scenes were shown in color. All of the forward scenes and flashback were shown in black and white. And where each scene ended in the reverse order, the ending of that scene was the beginning of the previous scene. And so the way everything was pieced together helped the audience put all the jigsaw pieces together when they were watching the movie.
Yes, I gave it an 8 out of 10, and I remember the first few times I watched it, the color scenes I could follow along what was going on pretty well. It was the black and white scenes that I was confused on where it took place and all that until I figured out that it was all in order. So, but it meets in the middle, I guess you could say. So that's what I give it an 8 out of 10. Who is this? Directing and producing.
I will give that a 10. I really have no complaints for that whatsoever. The fact that this is a very complicated way to show a film, showing some scenes going forward in a regular linear fashion, but the majority of the movie is going backward, and it could so be easy to make that a jumbled mess. But it doesn't turn out a jumbled mess. It's actually an exciting movie to follow. And I think a lot of that had to do with the production and with Christopher Nolan just knowing what he was doing with the story.
Yes, I also gave it a 10. I think it was excellently put together. Now, it took me, the first several times I watched it, there was some things that confused me about it, but when you, on the DVD, you can actually watch it in the right order, and it makes perfect sense. They didn't mess anything up, and there's plenty of surprises along the way. So I give it a 10 out of 10. Who is this? Jonathan?
The silver ribbon reminds me I'm doing something with him. Now what are we doing?
Movie review? Oh yes. Of course, I remember. I have ribbons on my fingers. It's a flawless system. It helps keep me on track for what I will be doing every day. What pills? Who are you?
Jonathan,
What are we doing?
movie review for Memento.
Oh yeah, acting. What is your score for acting, Jonathan?
My score was 8. I thought all the actors did a good job. I think Christopher Nolan is a great director of actors. Even though the lead performance was my favorite, I still think Guy Pearce did a great job. I thought it was fairly natural.
Yes, I gave it a 9. Yeah, I think also the overall acting was great. Kind of a naturalistic approach, especially for the lead character, but there was some interesting enough acting from a lot of the role players. So I gave it a 9. Yes, it helps me with my personal issues at home. You see,
At that moment, I realize I'm giving personal information to someone and don't remember who I'm talking to.
Who is this? You're coming over? Wait, hello? Next, we're going to discuss our favorite scene in Memento. And Jonathan's going to tell us.
Well, my favorite scene, and this is why we have spoilers. Basically, I'm going to tell you my favorite scene is probably the end. So if you don't want to hear this, you can skip forward. But basically, my favorite scene is the ending.
Or the beginning.
Or, yeah, you could say it's the beginning because the movie is shown in reverse order. But it basically, Leonard Shelby finds out that, you know, there are a lot of people he couldn't trust, but that included himself. Basically, the ending, he finds out that all the things he was looking for have already been done. Searching for his wife's attacker, and things like that. And it turns out that Joe Pantoliano's character, the corrupt cop Teddy, was basically using him to knock off people, to basically kill people that he wants to get out of the way. And so at the end, he sees that he's being used, but he also used himself because he wants to live in this lie so that he can continue searching for something. And it's just really, you know, big gut puncher of an ending.
I think my favorite scene was when Leonard Shelby's running and he goes, "Now what am I doing? I think I'm chasing this guy." No, he's chasing me. I've always gotten a big chuckle out of that scene.
Yeah, I almost picked that one.
Okay, now why am I looking out the window? Am I being watched? What is happening? Why aren't these ribbons helping?
Now we're going to discuss our least favorite actor in
Memento.
Jonathan?
My least favorite, and this is kind of weird, is Guy Pearce, who plays the main character. And I don't think he was bad. I think all the acting in the movie is good. I felt like in some ways, I felt like he was underacting sometimes. Obviously, he needs to play a confused person because he has a memory problem. But sometimes I was wondering if maybe, don't want him to overact, but maybe like put maybe a little bit more emotionless performance. Now again, it isn't bland, it isn't bad, and you know it feels kind of wrong, you know, considering I like this movie and picking on the main character. But I would say that he was probably my least favorite performance out of the main characters.
I also had Guy Pearce, I liked Guy Pearce in this movie. I'm a big fan of Guy Pearce, and I think he was really good for what he was doing. But the more character-y people were other people, and he was kind of more straight in a sense. So That's the only reason, but I think in general it's not an indictment on him as much as the kind of character he was playing.
What is going on? What does this mean? Why can't I remember anything?
Okay, next we're going to talk about our favorite actor in the movie. Jonathan?
My favorite actor was Carrie-Anne Moss, which surprised me because the previous movie I've seen her in, The Matrix, I felt like she was kind of bland, but in this movie, I could tell she had a lot of range, and her character kind of changes throughout the movie, and I thought that was a difficult part to nail down, and I thought she did a good job. She basically plays a character that Leonard Shelby, the main character, interacts with, and yeah, I thought she did a good job.
And my favorite actor for, what movie is this again?
Memento.
Memento. I almost had Carrie-Anne Moss, but I crossed it out and ended up putting Joe Pontoliano. Pontoliano. Kind of a corrupt cop who, he was somewhat humorous. He was kind of picking on this guy with a memory problem, but also kind of a friend, but also kind of picking on him. So I liked Joe Pontoliano. I've always liked him in the other movies he's been in as well. Today we're going to review the movie Memento. And to tell us all about this movie, even though I remember everything about it, is going to be this guy.
Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Right. Well, Memento was released in 2000, was written and directed by Christopher Nolan, and stars Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Joe Pantoliano. And before I go any further, I just want to let you guys know that there will be some spoilers in this review, just to let you know. And the story is about a man who has a certain kind of amnesia where he remembers the past but can't form any new memories. And the audience, when watching this movie, is as confused as he is because the whole film is shown in reverse order. So each scene that comes after the previous scene, it actually came before that scene. Sounds a little confusing, but actually for quite a non-linear film, it's fairly easy to follow. Fairly easy. Don't want to take that too literally. But yeah, he basically received his condition when he was attacked and his wife was murdered. And so he's trying to find who murdered his wife, but that's very difficult because he can't get any new memories. So he basically leaves notes to himself, whether on photographs he took or tattoos on his body to help him put down facts that will help him on his journey.
Hello? Who is it?
It's Jonathan.
Jonathan.
You know, movie reviews?
Oh, yeah, of course. Hello, YouTube and YouTubettes. Today we're going to review the movie Memento.